Okay. Am I kicking it off, Sierra?
You sure are.
All right. Well, hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Dr. Mary Guerrera. I'm a professor emeritus of family medicine and integrative medicine at the Department of Family Medicine at UConn Med School. And I am delighted to welcome you all to our Mind Body Health Research Interest Group spring event, Introduction to Ayurveda. And so tonight's event is made possible by UConn's Institute for the Collaboration on Health, Intervention and Policy, known as InCHIP, which brings together individuals with diverse scientific, clinical, and methodological expertise and supports their evolution into collaborative investigators who conduct innovative interdisciplinary research, impacting public health and well-being. InCHIP's vision is to improve the health and well-being of individuals, organizations, and communities in Connecticut and beyond by supporting innovative and high-impact interdisciplinary research. The Mind Body Health Research Interest Group, known as MBH-RIG, is an interdisciplinary research collaborative established in 2015 and joined InCHIP in 2019. Our mission is to further education, research, clinical and practical applications, as well as community outreach that focuses on emerging and potential connections between mind and body. We think tonight's event will do just that. I also wanted to add that there was a very, I think, important and exciting and optimistic recent happening at the national level. There is a national organization called the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine. And just 2 weeks ago, this organization, which was used to be known as the Institute of Medicine, they're sort of the watchdog for the public health of our nation. They released a report titled Whole Health for Veterans and the Nation. And whole health is a model that has, over the last decade, been researched and implemented and looked at the clinical outcomes of a whole health model. And this whole health model brings together the best of what we might call complementary and holistic medicine with current mainstream conventional allopathic and osteopathic medicine, is sort of the dominant paradigm now in our country. And this is a very exciting report. There's a free webinar of the panel discussing the outcomes and the roadmap. And this really, I think, is an important advancement of looking at a model that can be scalable and implemented for the best possible health of all people. And so they're basically calling this whole health for the common good. So Sierra has placed that web link into the chat box. I encourage you all with this interest in mind, body health to take a look at this report as well as the webinar. It's very exciting, and I think it's going to be the future for our healthcare. Thank goodness. All right, so with that, I will now pass our opening remarks along to Dr. Melissa Bray, who will introduce the Mind Body Health Research Interest Group board members. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Guerrero. Perfect. I'll just take just a minute to tell about the 3 individuals that remain serving on the board. We just lost the physician we have to replace, and that's Dr. Verissimo, which I'm sad to say. So right now it will be myself, Melissa Bray. I'm a professor, and I direct the school psychology program on the Storrs campus within the NEAG School of Education. You were just lucky enough to hear from Dr. Mary Guerrera, who is fantastic in helping this group. She is a physician. She's emeritus professor in family medicine at the University of Connecticut Medical School and UConn Health Center. And lastly, who couldn't join us tonight is Dr. Sandra Butchmick, who's a veterinarian. She's also emeritus at the University of Connecticut. Associate Dean, she served as for academic programs within the College of Agriculture, Health, and Natural Resources. So I'm sorry she couldn't be here tonight with us. So thank you for joining us. We're very excited for this presentation. And Sierra, thank you for putting things together. Sierra Trudell is a doctoral candidate in school psychology and directs a lot of our things that go on in this board. So thank you, Sierra. I appreciate it. And I'll turn it back over to you.
Absolutely. So now I have the really exciting job of introducing our speaker for this evening. So Vanashree Belgamwar is an Ayurvedic practitioner and the owner of Vanashree Ayurveda LLC. She holds a bachelor's degree in Ayurvedic medicine and surgery from the University of Health Sciences in India, and she's been practicing Ayurveda in the state of Minnesota for the last 8 years. And she offers in-person as well as virtual consults that focus on balancing all aspects of life, being physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. Listening to her patients and guiding them through their imbalances is what she loves most about her practice. And her company's mission is to globalize Ayurveda. So I am thrilled to pass it over to Vanashree.
Thank you for the introduction, Sierra. I'm so honored to be on this platform and share my knowledge with everyone present here today. Thank you all for joining in, taking out time to hear me talk about this wonderful science known as Ayurveda. So let's just dive right into it. So we are going to start with introducing this wonderful science known as Ayurveda. This is literally called as the science of life. Okay, so let's move on to our next slide, which is the basic concepts of Ayurveda. Now let's learn a little about what this word Ayurveda means so that we can understand the broad vision of the science. The word Ayurveda can literally be broken down into two parts. Okay, so the first would be Ayu, the second would be Veda. Ayu means life and Veda means science. So these are the literal translations of these Sanskrit words, Ayu and Veda. Now, when we club them together, it becomes Ayurveda, that is science or wisdom of life. It's basically a holistic traditional healing system that originated in India. It's from India. It's about a 2,000 to 5,000-year-old science. So our last documented all education or last documented information about Ayurveda was about 5,000 years old. So it was written, it was documented. But people believe that this science has been for even before that, even before the documentation started. So it's a very, very ancient science with amazing secrets of life that can help you in every aspect of your life. This science mostly focuses on prevention. So Ayurveda is a lot more preventative science than curative, but don't get me wrong, it has wonderful and amazing herbs and tips to cure the diseases as well. But it believes that if we prevent the diseases firsthand, we would not need to cure them, right? So prevention is the key, is what Ayurveda believes in, and that's why prevention is always better than cure, is what Ayurveda always says. Now, traditional herbs, we use traditional herbs for healing. The difference between Ayurveda and any other alternative therapy is basically we use the crude form of the herbs and we break them, we make them powder, and we use plant as a whole. We do not separate any active ingredients from the plant because we believe that if we use plant as a whole, there are substances in the plant that would counteract the negative effects of the active ingredients if they are at all high in the body. So we always use the plant as a whole whenever we are treating any imbalances in the body. Now, one thing that Ayurveda always believes in is that man is a macrocosm of nature. Now, here a lot of people say, why only man? Why not women? So technically, man here means a human being. A human being is a macrocosm of nature. What that means is we are a subtle part of the nature outside us, and whatever is happening outside in the nature affects us very, very deeply. It's because we are made out of the same 5 elements, and we'll go over those elements in a bit here. But the objective of Ayurveda is to maintain the health of a healthy person and to cure the diseases of a diseased person. Obviously, it's the objective of majority of the medical sciences, right? And so does Ayurveda believe in it too. Now let's move on to the next slide, which is the 5 elements. Now, there are different alternative therapies that believe in different 5 elements, but Ayurveda believes that we are made of these 5 elements, that is earth, fire, water, air, and ether. Now, earth is obviously anything that is solid in nature, right? Anything that can be physically seen, felt through your senses, can be touched, can be tasted, can be lifted, can actually be felt through your senses, is the earth element, right? Fire element, obviously, fire as in like any heat, and any heat that causes transformation in the body is the fire element in the body, okay? And the fire element outside is obviously the fire that you see, right? The water is the third element. Water, our body is made up of majority of water, and we cannot survive without water. It's of utmost importance. So water is the third element. Air, obviously the air that you breathe. But here, when we say air, air is all about movement or mobility in the body. Okay, so whatever movement is happening in the body is happening because of the air element. The ether element is the fifth. Now, ether means space. Ether is nothing but empty space, anything devoid of something in it. So there are so many hollow spaces in our body. Our bones are hollow, our ears are hollow, our entire digestive tract is hollow, right? We have so many orifices that are hollow, our sinuses are hollow. So all of that is nothing but ether element in our body. Okay, so these are the 5 elements that Ayurveda believes in, and everything outside in the nature is made out of the same 5 elements, and so are we. And that's why if there are changes in these 5 elements outside us, they're going to affect us profoundly because we are made out of the same 5 elements. This is called as Pancha Bhautik theory in Ayurveda. Pancha means 5, Bhautik means, Bhuta means elements. So it's a big theory in Ayurveda that the entire Ayurveda is based on. So we look at the qualities of all these elements, and that's how we treat, that's how we treat any imbalances in a person. Now let's move on to the concept of doshas. This is something that is very important to understand because the entire science of Ayurveda is based on these functional principles known as doshas in our body. Now, these doshas, I cannot show you a dosha because it's not physical. It's something that is metaphysical. It's something that is in a form of an energy that is very much so present in your body, and it's working at different times of the day, at the different it fluctuates with different seasons, so it's a very energetic way of understanding how those elements might be working in your body. Now, doshas, and let me just clear the confusion. A lot of people who are familiar with Indian food might say, is it similar to dosas? It's not dosas, it's called doshas. So doshas are very different than a yummy lentil-based crepe in India called as dosas. Okay, it's a very famous South Indian food called dosas, but this is doshas. So doshas are functional principles that work in our body, and there are 3: Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. Now, Vata is made of air and ether element, Pitta is made of fire and water element, and Kapha is made of water and earth element. Now, these 3 doshas are situated all over our body. Also, they have their specific homes in our body where they work or where they live, where they love to live. Now, if I say Vata, Vata is predominantly present down from your belly button. Okay, so the job of Vata predominantly is to move things out of your body or to push things out of your body. So the stools, the urine, the menstruation, the pushing the baby out, anything that comes from downside or downwards of your body is a job of Vata. But not only that, any mobility or any movement in the body is also governed by this functional principle, that is Vata. Vata is the most powerful out of all the doshas, is because why? It's air, right? It moves in your body. And it's the only dosha that has the ability to move. And because it moves, it can push the other 2 practically immobile doshas anywhere in the body and cause diseases. So it's very important to understand that air is the most powerful, even outside in the nature. There is a sutra in Ayurveda called as Yatra niyanti tatra gacchati meghavat. Okay, Vayuna yatra niyanti tatra gacchati meghavat. Now, this is a Sanskrit sutra that is very, very famous in Ayurvedic text, which tells us that outside in the nature, even the clouds filled, like heavy clouds filled with water, are pushed by the air and cause hurricanes and tornadoes, right? Now you can understand how powerful air is, because it can push double the weight of how much like whatever weight it has, and it can move things in the wrong direction and cause havoc, okay, outside in the nature, similarly in our body. Now the next dosha we're going to talk about is pitta. Pitta is predominantly made of fire and water. Now, if we say fire and water, if we think logically, fire and water make steam, right? So you can think of it as steam in your body, or whatever transformation is happening, metabolism, transformation, cellular regeneration, whatever is happening in your body is caused due to the fire and water element. Nothing can transform, nothing can change in your body if there is no fire subjected to it. So here, technically, fire means transformation. Okay. Now let's move on to the third and the final dosha, that is kapha. Now, kapha is made of water and earth. If you see, out of all the 5 elements, water and earth are the heaviest of all the 5 elements. So naturally, kapha is going to be very, very heavy in the body, and it's kapha is mostly responsible for stability, for protection of the body, for keeping you grounded, for putting you to sleep every night. So it's a very important dosha in the body that keeps everything, does its best to keep everything stable in your mind and body. So these are the 3 functional principles, and they are kind of like a tripod on which your health stands. Okay. Now, if any of these doshas are out of balance, your health is going to fall, because it's a tripod. If one leg is shorter than the other 2, it's just going to fall off, right? So it's the same way in your body. These work as a tripod for your health. Now let's move on to the next slide. And this is one of my favorite slides to present, because this is very personal, or personable. And this is all about the qualities of doshas. Now we are going to learn about specific qualities of what doshas, what qualities those doshas possess. And when I'm talking about these qualities, I just want you to imagine yourself or your friends, your family members, so that you can understand the qualities a lot better. Now, let's talk about the vata first. Now, every dosha has the qualities of the elements that it's made of. So vata is made of air and ether element, right? So the first quality would be light. How is air? Air is very light to weight. Similarly, if a person has high amounts of vata in them, those people would be really light to weight. So they do not put on weight very easily. Even if they put on weight, it's really easy for them to lose weight. Like they lose weight if they don't work out. Okay. So this is a light quality. The light quality also manifests in their mind. They are very light-minded people, always very airy, not so much focused, doing all things together kind of people. Okay. The next quality would be dry and rough. The dry and rough quality go hand in hand. The rough quality is like the next stage of dryness, where it's excessive dryness on the body and you cannot do anything to handle it, like dry hair, but then rough cuticles, right? Or dry cracked heels, extremely dry cracked heels. That's the rough quality. Now the dry is obviously, they have extreme dryness. Air, unless and until it comes in contact with water, it cannot be moist, it cannot be dry, wet, right? So vata people are naturally very dry in nature. So they have dry hair, dry skin, dry internals, more prone to constipation, things like that. The subtle quality of vata, the subtle and the mobile quality of vata makes vata the most powerful dosha. When I say subtle, it's very important to understand this quality of vata, because air can go to every nook and corner in the body. Okay. Similarly, if you're sitting in a room, if it's not airtight, airproofed. It can go to every nook and corner. It can go inside the cabinets, under the table, inside your clothes, wherever it wants to, right? It's the same way in your body. It's very, very subtle. It can literally go to your mind, it can cause havoc in your emotional layer of existence. It can cause problems with the physical body. So it's very, very subtle. It can literally go to cellular level and cause imbalances. The mobile quality, obviously, we talked about air is mobile. It cannot stay still. But if at all it gets stagnated in the body is when you would start seeing problems. So this vata is always moving in the body. So the circulation that is happening is because of the air element. Whatever nervous conduction is happening is because of vata in the body. So if it's not moving and it gets stagnated in specific regions is when you would start seeing problems. Now, the last quality is cold. The air is always cold to touch unless it comes in contact with heat. So these people are very cold internally. They cannot tolerate external cold. That's why they cannot tolerate external cold. So they're not fond of, say, Minnesota, where I come from, right? They hate to live in Minnesota. Like Vata people struggle so bad. I've told so many of my Vata clients to move to a warmer location and their health just changes by leaps and bounds. It's not even funny. It's like how much the seasons outside can affect your health. It's very profound. It's very, very important to understand this. And if a Vata person moves to a warmer location, so many of their health problems would naturally go away because the doshas kind of understand how to balance themselves. So we did talk about Vata being the most powerful of all the three doshas. Now let's talk about what would be the best thing for a Vata person to do if that person has all of these qualities, and how can you keep them in balance? The best thing for a Vata person to do is to follow a routine. For everyone to follow a routine is very important, but more so for a Vata person, because then you're not giving that Vata's erratic nature or that Vata the chance to mess things up in your body. You're telling the Vata or giving the Vata the job to do at specific times during the day. So you're telling that Vata, hey, it's time to eat now. Hey, it's time to work out now. Hey, it's time to sleep now. So it's very important to keep that Vata in check by following things on a routine. So eating around the same time every day, pooping around the same time every day, sleeping around the same time, working out around the same time. So if you do things on a routine, that Vata will always be in check and it will not go anywhere else. And you'll tell that Vata to be doing things at certain specific times during the day. So routine is very crucial for a Vata person. Now let's move to Pitta. Now, Pitta is the dosha that balances Vata and Kapha in the body. It's the balancing guy who keeps both of the doshas in check, like Vata and Kapha in check. So the first quality of Pitta, obviously it's made of fire and water. So the first quality is oily. Now, Pitta people are very oily in nature. They have oily skin, oily hair, more prone to acne as teenagers because of that excess oil in their system. So in general, a lot of oil. That oil can also cause diarrhea in them. So a lot of oil. The second quality of Pitta is sharp. If you look at fire, how is fire? Fire is sharp. It's very, very attractive, right? It's very heating in nature. So that sharpness is also seen in a Pitta individual. If a Pitta person walks right beside you, they are very attractive human beings, like good orators, a managerial level, CEOs, very, very sharp-minded people. Okay, but that sharp quality, if it's out of balance, they can be sharp-tongued. So if that sharp quality is out of balance, Pitta people cannot think and just talk. Okay, so it's very important that for that sharp quality to be in balance. With that sharp quality, they also have a sharp hunger. So I usually say Pitta people are hangry, they are never hungry. Like my husband is always hangry. If he starts like fighting with me or just arguing with me for no reason, I'm like, do you need to eat? And he's like, I think I'm hungry. Then I tell him, you're not hungry, you're always hangry. So if you're a Pitta person, remember you're a hangry human being, and eating on routine times will always avoid problems in your life. So just doing that one little thing, eating on routine times, can change your mindset at looking of to look at things a lot. Okay, so just eat on time if you're a pitta person to curb that sharp hunger. Now the third is hot. The hot quality, these people are internally extremely heating, so they cannot tolerate external heat. So summers may not be the best season for them. The southern states would be really challenging for them to live. So the best would for a pitta person would be northern states, like wherever it gets cold a lot, right? Wherever it snows. So the light quality, the fourth quality here, light means they are moderately weighing. They are not too large, too big. They're kind of mediumly built people. But here the light quality more manifests as in bright. So bright like the sun. These people are extremely, as I said, attractive, very, very bright personalities. Okay. The the second last quality is mobile. Now, when I say the mobility of Pitta, when I compare mobility of Pitta to Vata, Vata is extremely mobile. It like moves really fast. Whereas Pitta would move like slowly, as if like oil would spread on a surface. How would the oil spread on a surface? It would spread really slowly. So the Pitta's movement in the body is same. It would move very slowly. Like say for instance, a disease of Pitta is rash. Rash spreading on your body. Rash would never appear all of a sudden overnight. It would slowly spread all over your body. So that's a Pitta disease according to Ayurveda because of the mobility of Pitta. The last is liquid. Pitta people naturally have a lot of liquidity in their system, and that's why they're more prone to like excessive sweating, more urination. They just excrete more liquids too. Also diarrhea because of that liquidity in their gut. Now, the best thing for a Pitta person to remember, because of this hot, sharp, intense quality, intense nature of them, they just keep going and going and going and going, and then they collapse, they burn out, and then they just collapse, right? So the best thing for a Pitta person to do is to surrender. Now, even if you're a Pitta person, and if I say surrender, that word itself might sound horrific to you. You're like, what? I'm a Pitta. I'm never going to surrender. What do you mean by surrender? So surrender does not mean letting go. Surrender means taking a step back and analyzing the situation. Is this really worth my time, my efforts, my energy? Or am I putting too much into this and getting burned up for no reason, right? So hitting a pause button on you and not a stop button. It's very important for a Pitta person to understand where to pause so that you can save yourself from that burnout. So surrendering is the key for a Pitta person. Now let's move on to Kapha, which is our last dosha. Kapha people are naturally heavier to weigh because water and earth element are heaviest of all the 5 elements. So their natural build itself is larger. They will have large, thick bones. They will have broader physical structure. Okay, they're very heavy to weigh. Even if they're lean, they're heavier to weigh because their tissues are heavier in general. They very easily put on weight, and it's very hard for a Kapha person to lose weight. The next quality is slow. Slow, as in like they will do everything on a slower pace. Even their metabolism is slow. They will talk slow, they will eat slow, they'll walk slow. Everything is on a slower pace compared to the other constitutions. The Pitta and Kapha share the quality oily. Similarly, Kapha people have a lot of oil in their system, more prone to acne as teenagers, oily hair, oily skin. The cold quality is something that Vata and Kapha share. So Kapha people are also very cold in nature. They cannot tolerate external cold. So they love like dry, hot states like Texas, Arizona would be like the best states for them to live. The other quality is slimy and sticky. Now, when we talk about slimy and sticky, think of Kapha as clay or mud, right? When you combine water and earth together, it becomes mud or clay. So it's similarly the same way in your body. Like you can think of phlegm or mucus that protects your joints, that helps you taste the food, whatever you eat, the saliva, or the secretions in the eye that lubricates the eye. So all of the lubrication and protection is done by Kapha in the body. The dense quality is all about everything being dense. They have dense, thick hair. They have dense bones, dense muscles, dense fat. Everything is denser. Okay. The soft quality in kapha is they have beautiful, soft, smooth skin. They rarely have to put lotion on. But when I say soft, I immediately think of soft-hearted. Kapha people are the most soft, smooth-hearted people. They live for others. They just give and give and give, and they're the most loving human beings. I always say if you want to have a best friend, choose a kapha to be your best friend because they will always keep your secrets and they'll always be very, very stable. They will help you through all your ups and downs. So a kapha person would be the best friend, best friend to have. The stable quality, as I said, they are the most stable human beings. The most strongest constitution to have is a kapha constitution because of all these strong qualities that they have. The only downside of the kapha is the heavy quality. If it's not kept in check, then they can put on weight very easily. But other than that, it's the most strongest constitution to have. So they have a very strong immune system. They have no problem sleeping. They are the most stable human beings. But at the same time, they're also very, very emotional. They take on emotions of others and they also are emotional themselves. So the best thing for a kapha person to remember because of this heavy, slow, oily, dense, thick qualities is to do some movement. Movement is very balancing for kapha. It balances all those heavy qualities. So exercising or any physical movement throughout the day, at least 30 minutes a day is very, very healing for a kapha person. It's because the opposite nature of movement keeps that heavy, dull, stagnant qualities of kapha in check. So these are the three doshas. Now people might ask me, I resonate with few of the qualities of this one, few of the qualities of that one. So can I have both in my constitution? And we will be talking about that in the next slide. So yes, the answer is yes, you can have multiple different qualities of all the doshas in you. And that's how we come to your unique constitution. Now, the unique constitution in Ayurveda is called the Prakriti. Now, what is Prakriti? Prakriti is your unique constitution. Ayurveda believes every person on this planet is unique. No two people are same. Now, if I say I am a Pitta-Vata person, maybe Sira would be a Pitta-Vata person too. But the combination of those doshas that makes Sierra would be a lot more different than the combination, or the percentages that the doshas are in me would be totally different than how they would be in Sierra, or where they manifest in my body would be very different. So you can think of Prakriti as your DNA, which never changes, or I'm not saying it's the same. I'm just saying you can compare it to the DNA or the blood group that you're made of. Your blood group or DNA never changes throughout the life. So it's the same. Your Prakriti never changes throughout the life. And this is who you are for this lifetime. Your constitution is decided at the time of conception. So when the sperm and the egg meet in your mother's womb is when your Prakriti is already decided. So I'm sorry to say you have no say whatsoever over it. This is who you are for this lifetime. Unfortunately, you cannot change your constitution. But you can manage it. You can manage it very well by using Ayurvedic tips. Your constitution never changes, and your constitution could be of 7 different types. So the Prakriti could be monodoshic. That means you're just Vata predominant, Pitta predominant, or Kapha predominant. It could be a dual doshic constitution where you're a Vata Pitta person, or a Kapha Pitta person, or a Pitta Kapha person, So when I say dual doshic, the dosha that I say first is your predominant and the second is your subdominant dosha. So if I say I'm a Pitta Vata person, that means I have a lot more Pitta in me and subsecondarily Vata. And I do have Kapha because you have to have all the 3 doshas, otherwise it's not going to work, right? So your constitution is formed by the predominant dosha or the predominant qualities of the dosha that you are. Now, another thing to understand is the concept of vikriti. Vikriti means your current imbalance. What is going on in your body right now that is causing issues or causing symptoms, or the vikriti could be in a subtle stage where it's not actually manifesting yet into a symptom or a disease, but it may manifest later down the line into a symptom or a disease. So genetics play a big factor in vikriti as well. So if you have like ulcerative colitis or cancer, history of cancer in your family, there are likely more chances that you might get it, right? So it's that vikriti that has been already, that's more of a genetic factor that is already imbalanced and you're born with that imbalance, right? So, but does not necessarily mean you have to go through that in your life. You can obviously avoid that. Avoid those diseases in you by following the right diet and lifestyle for your constitution. Now, the vikriti or the imbalance could be fixed with the help of diet, lifestyle suitable for your constitution, and obviously herbs, Ayurvedic herbs. But the goal of Ayurveda or to be healthy is to go from vikriti to prakriti. So whatever current imbalance you're facing, we need to go from that imbalance to the balance that you were born with, and then you will be healthy. So that's the goal of Ayurveda. Now, few other basic concepts that we probably should know is dhatus. Dhatus are your tissues, your 7 bodily tissues that you're formed of. And these are 7: lymph, blood, muscles, fat or adipose tissue, bones, bone marrow, and egg or sperm, or bone marrow and nervous tissue. Now, the key to remember with dhatus is what Ayurveda says is these dhatus are formed in succession one after the other. So the blood is formed from lymph, muscles are formed from blood, and so on to egg or sperm. Now, in Ayurveda, if we are treating imbalances in egg or sperm, say infertility, if a client comes to me for infertility, that means the doshas prior to that, sorry, the dhatus prior to that are also imbalanced. So the tissues prior to that are imbalanced. So we would have to technically work on balancing all these different tissues to treat infertility. So that's how Ayurveda would look at the tissues. Now, there is another concept called malas. Malas are nothing but waste products in our body. So they are majoritarily 3 waste products in our body: feces, urine, and sweat. And Ayurveda recommends that we evacuate or pass stools every day because it's very crucial from an Ayurvedic standpoint to release the toxins out of your body every single day. Obviously, you need to urinate every day and sweat depending on what constitution you have. Vata people sweat very less. Pitta Kapha people sweat a lot more because they have a lot more liquid component in their system. And also depends on the physical activity that you do throughout the day. So this is the concept on the tissues and the waste products. Now, a very important concept to remember is Agni. Now, everything in Ayurveda is based on Agni. Agni is your digestive fire. Now, if you look at the picture on the slide here, you will see I've literally put up a picture where you can see fire in your gut, and that's exactly how the digestive fire in your body works. Ayurveda gives this fire utmost importance and it equates it to life. Okay, so if your fire is burning, you're living. If you have imbalance in your digestive fire, you're soon going to have diseases. Okay, so if the fire is in balance, you are healthy. If it's imbalanced, weak fire is the source of majority of the diseases. Now, this digestive fire is like a baby. You have to train it to work at certain times during the day. So training your Agni and making it stronger is very crucial to avoid diseases. What does this Agni do? To understand the importance of Agni in the body, what all processes it governs is very important to understand. So the first is obviously the digestion, absorption, assimilation, the creation of digestive enzymes. All metabolic activities that happen in the body are due to Agni. Your strength and vitality, the skin color, complexion, glow, and luster, maintenance of body temperature. Now, I don't know how many people have observed this, but during winters, you might feel a lot more hungry than summer if you're very in tune with your digestive fire and with your body. There is a big reason for this because your Agni maintains your body temperature. Now, during winters, the temperature outside is very cold, right? So the core heat, the heat in the core fires up to keep your core heated, right? And that's why you'll feel a lot more hungrier during winters. Whereas in summer, because it's hot outside, that heat dissipates all over your body and to keep you cool in the summer. And that's why you may not feel as hungry as you would feel in the winter. So it does maintain your body temperature. The mental clarity, intelligence, sensory perception, but mostly visual perception is what your Agni governs. So I have so many clients who have myopia, presbyopia, or any eye disorders. That means their Agni is not functioning well. The alertness, affection, enthusiasm for life. If you have any digestive disorders like ulcerative colitis, IBS, so many chronic digestive disorders, you'll just feel that your enthusiasm for life, or just like your motivation, goes down to do things. It's because your Agni, your fire that keeps you going is not working in the right direction. It is responsible for courage and confidence, joy, laughter, contentment, discrimination, logic and reasoning, patience, stability, and longevity. So there are so many things in the body that this one big fire governs. And that's why it's very important that your Agni is always in balance. Now, as we know, there are different types of constitutions. There are also different types of Agnis that you're born with. And majority of the times it correlates to the constitution that you're born with. Now, one is the Vishama Agni, which is like the variable Agni. Okay, this results in alternating cycles of strong appetite with loss of appetite. So sometimes you'll feel hungry, sometimes you won't. Sometimes you would eliminate better, sometimes you won't. Sometimes you would have constipation, other times you would have diarrhea. So all about erraticness. Okay, irregularity, and this Agni is all about that. So variable Agni, it's called Vishama Agni. And because of this variable Agni, there are more chances of you having gaseous distension in the abdomen and constipation. The second is, so the Vishama Agni is more correlated to the Vata person. So if you have high Vata in you, probably you would have high Vishama Agni in you. You would be born with Vishama Agni. Now, let's move on to the Tikshna Agni. Tikshna Agni is correlated to the Pitta, and it's a very strong fire. Tikshna means strong. So these people have excessive appetite, and that strong fire results in a lot more eating. Now, because you're eating a lot more, there are chances of developing diarrhea, abdominal colic, anemia, burning sensation, acid reflux, nausea, things like that happen because of the strong fire. The third is the Manda Agni, which is a Kapha type of Agni, and Kapha people have slower metabolism. It's a weaker kind of a Agni. So they have poor appetite, they necessarily won't feel hungry for breakfast, they have a very sluggish metabolism, they have a tendency to put on weight. Excessive mucus or phlegm production and congestion is more common in those constitutions because of the weak metabolism. The best Agni to have though is Sama Agni, which is normal or healthy Agni. How would you know if your Agni is Sama? The first thing you need to remember, this is called as Anjali in Ayurveda. If you make a bowl or of your hands, or if you club your hands together and make a bowl. Now my Anjali is going to be different than your Anjali. This should be your portion size for every time you eat a meal. This represents mostly a medium-sized cereal bowl, though not pancakes or pizza sizes stacked over it. Okay, it needs to be flat. It needs to be flat, medium cereal bowl. So this is your Anjali size. This is your portion size. And you need to eat that much, whichever Agni you have, you need to eat that much for one sitting. Now, if you're satisfied with that amount of food, that means probably you have a Sama Agni. And then if you're a Pitta person, you may not be satisfied with that amount of food. So I recommend, if you have a strong fire and if you're not satisfied, don't eat a lot at one sitting. Maybe eat again in 2 hours this much, like your portion size, but don't overfill your stomach at once, because then your digestion will be affected a whole lot. So a strong and appealing appetite that is easily satisfied with normal amount of food is Sama Agni. And Sama Agni is responsible for human body nutrition, building strong foundation for the 7 tissues. So these are the types of Agnis. But the good part about Agni is that the Prakriti cannot be changed, but Agni can be changed, and it can be done very easily. Okay. Now, what is health according to Ayurveda? After we have learned majority of the basic concepts, There is a sutra in Ayurveda called Samadosha Samagnishcha Samadhatu Malakriya Prasanna Atmendriya Manaha Swastetya Vidhiyate. This is by one of our ancient acharya, that is teachers, called Sushruta. He has written one of our texts that we read about 3,000 years ago, and Sushruta was one of the first people to invent plastic surgery. So he was a surgeon. Now, the definition of health according to Ayurveda is Sama means balance, and whatever comes after that should be balanced in you for you to be healthy. So the doshas that we talked about, so the balanced functional principles, balanced digestive fire, balanced 7 tissues, balanced 3 excretory products. Now these are all the physical aspects, but Ayurveda goes beyond this and says that your soul, your senses, and your mind should be contented. That means Ayurveda taps into all the layers of existence. It is not only limited to the physical body. Ayurveda says for you to be healthy, truly healthy, your physical layer of existence, your emotional layer of existence, your psychological, your spiritual, and your emotional layer of existence needs to be in balance. So all these 5 layers should be in balance. Now, if we look at the definition of health, this broad definition, technically no one should be healthy, right? Because it's such a comprehensive, detailed explanation of health. I will tell you, it's really difficult to achieve this level of health, but it's not impossible. Okay, it's not impossible, and it's doable, but it needs a lot of determination, a lot of diligence, a lot of giving up on your favorite things, but it is truly achievable. Now, the principle on which Ayurveda works is like increases like and opposites balance. So the qualities that we were talking about right now, hot negates cold, right? So if you're hot in nature, probably you should be favoring cold. So it's very easy to understand. If you take a glass of water and add more water to it, obviously it's going to increase, right? So the same is in the body. If you want to counteract a specific quality, you have to use the opposite quality to balance that quality out in you. Okay, so like increases like, opposites balance. Now, another important concept is the concept of ama. Ama, this is very, very famous these days in the form of leaky gut syndrome, IBS, or celiac disease, or gluten intolerance. There's so many diseases that stem from digestive toxins, and Ayurveda has been talking about ama for years together. It's such an ancient science. How would you know if you have digestive toxins in your system? And you will form digestive toxins if your Agni, that is your digestive fire, is not able to process whatever you're eating. So your digestion is leaving the food undigested or partially digested in your body. And these stay and convert into digestive toxins. If they're in your gut, that's amazing. We can work on it. But now if they start spreading through your circulation to different places in the body, is when you will start seeing a whole lot of symptoms. And then the pathogenesis gets even challenging, and it gets even deeper, and it's harder to treat if the digestive toxins are spread all over the body. So the first is coating on your tongue. If you wake up in the morning and say and look at your tongue, and if you see coating first thing in the morning, especially upon awakening, that means you are developing ama in your system. If the coating goes away after you scrape your tongue, you're still in the safe zone. Okay. Frequent fatigue or lethargy. You're tired for no reason. You're tired, especially after eating, and you're not able to, no motivation at all. Okay. Fuzzy thinking, unexplained aches or pains in the body. It's like hurting for no reason. Bloating and gas, skin blemishes, stickiness of body fluids. So sticky urine, sticky vaginal discharge, sticky eye discharge, everything, all body liquids would be sticky. Bad breath, sinking of stools. Mucus in stools, cloudy urine is another very common symptom of ama, and it's easily detectable. So if you look at your urine and it's cloudy, that means probably you're developing a lot more ama. Lack of appetite. You necessarily don't feel like eating. Even if it's the time for your meal, you don't have an appetite. Lack of taste or sweet taste in the mouth. This is a very distinct, very rare symptom, but luckily I have had few clients of this symptom, and I could treat it because of Ayurveda, because I knew it's a symptom of ama. And just the sweet taste in the mouth and or lack of taste, like you're eating really pungent or strong tasting food, but you're not able to taste it at all. Okay, so these are few symptoms of ama, and the best is to not develop any ama in your system. Now, how can we be healthy? This is some information that is going to help you a lot in your daily life. One thing I told is to eat meals on a routine basis. How to keep your Agni healthy? Train it. Train it to work at certain times during the day, and the way you can do it is by eating routine meals. So you're giving your Agni the right signals to work at certain times during the day. The second is to drink warm water with your meals, about 8 ounces, not more than that. And especially so if you do not have any liquid component in your meal. Use spices in your cooking. Spices aid your digestion big time, and they avoid digestive toxins to be formed in your gut. So some spices that could be routinely used are turmeric, ginger, fennel, black pepper. All of these spices are great. So I usually recommend make your food golden yellow. Add turmeric to everything that you cook. Ginger, fennel, black pepper, and it also looks good. It looks appetizing. So it's always good to add turmeric. Warm teas like fresh ginger tea, fennel tea is very, very supportive to your digestion. An amazing fat to use is ghee. Ghee is one fat that will not increase your cholesterol. It will always increase your good cholesterol. So it will automatically balance your bad cholesterol. So it's a very good fat to use whenever you're cooking. And ghee is called clarified butter. If you don't know what ghee is, it's becoming very famous these days. But ghee is this golden potion, this amazing golden fat that is good for all constitutions. Though kapha people have to be very mindful of eating too much ghee, but it's good for all types of Agni. So cook with ghee. Ghee is very, very Agni supportive. Another very important thing to remember is avoid bad food combinations. Now, bad food combinations or wrong food combinations are very important according to Ayurveda because they result in digestive toxins. Now, one thing that is very commonly eaten in the West is yogurt with fruits. Oh God, please don't do that to yourself. Okay. If you're eating yogurt with fruits, the first thing, if you're breaking your fast with yogurt and fruits, it's one of the most taxing combination to eat. The reason is fruits are easily digestible and majority of the times acidic in nature, whereas dairy is most of the times basic in nature. If you combine acidic and basic, it will become like a fermented kind of a horrible combination for your gut to digest and result in a lot more digestive toxins. Okay. So whenever I tell this to my son, I tell him, do you want yucky yogurt to be formed in your stomach? Don't do that. Okay. Don't eat fruits with yogurt. So, as a rule, Ayurveda recommends to eat fruits by themselves or at least 1 hour apart from your meals. Okay. Because fruits are the most easy to digest. And if you're eating them with something else, fruits get digested first, and the other foods, while the other food is being digested, fruits start fermenting in your gut, and then it results in a lot of fermentation in the gut. We don't want that. Another commonly eaten thing here is too many proteins together, right? Like Huevos Ranchers, like American Mexican food, right? Like beans and chicken and cheese and so many things that would be combined together. But no wonder, I'm going to tell you, all the bad food combinations taste delicious. They taste the best. It's because in the nature, if something is really beautiful, probably it's poisonous, right? Like mushrooms. If you see beautiful red, white mushrooms, and if you touch them, they're going to be poisonous. So be very wary of things that taste delicious. I'm not saying healthy food does not taste delicious, but bad food combination taste extremely delicious. Like pizza, like tomatoes and cheese probably should not go together, but it does taste awesome, right? It's because it's a wrong food combination. Now remember, if you're doing bad food combinations here or there, it's not going to affect you. But if you're doing them every day, then it will start affecting you because you're collecting digestive toxins a lot more in your system. So these are a few things that can keep your Agni healthy. Another thing is six tastes. Ayurveda talks about six tastes. So sweet, salty, sour, pungent, bitter, and astringent. Sweet, everyone knows what is sweet. Sweet taste, desserts, grains, all of those are sweet in nature. Whereas salty is salt, obviously, or anything that has high sodium content. Sour are lemons, tomatoes, anything that is sour or gives you puckering in your mouth. Pungent is that hot feeling in your mouth when you eat that. Bitter is obviously like bitter gourd, collard greens, anything that is bitter in nature that you don't like eating it much. Astringent is like that pulling feeling that you get on the tongue when you eat something like wine or pomegranate, or turmeric is astringent. Like you would get this dry pulling effect on your tongue. That's the astringent taste. Now, Ayurveda recommends to eat all of the six tastes in your meal, because if you're missing out on one of these tastes, you're likely going to crave that taste more in your diet. So if you're not eating grains, like for example, you're doing keto, you're going to crave grains more, you're going to crave carbs more, you're going to crave sweets more. It's because your grains are sweet in nature and you're missing out on that taste. So Ayurveda recommends whenever you're cooking, add all of these six tastes to your meal. So if you're making a pot of soup, add a little bit of salt, a little bit of lemon or tomatoes, add a little bit of so turmeric is one spice that takes care of pungent, bitter, and astringent. Turmeric is pungent, bitter, and astringent. That's why I was recommending to add turmeric to everything that you cook. And so, sweet is obviously grains, or a little bit of maple syrup, honey, sucanat, sugarcane natural, or coconut palm sugar, date sugar. Something sweet should go in your meal so that you don't eat a dessert after your meal. Okay. So these are some tips that can keep your Agni healthy. Now, what is the good diet for specific doshas? Now, for Vata, obviously, Vata should favor more warm and cooked food because they're cold in nature. The food should be moist and generously oiled. They should stay away from dry, rough crackers, like dry, cold, raw food like carrots, broccoli, things like that. Everything that goes in a Vata person's body should be warm and cooked. It should be moist and generously oiled. Favor more grounding, nourishing, stabilizing grains. So like cooked grains, spiced milk, root vegetables, stewed fruits, nuts and seeds. Nuts and seeds have a high amount of oil, and that balances the dryness of Vata very well. Smooth things like bananas, rice pudding, hot cereal. And the taste that a Vata person should favor are sweet, sour, and salty. Now for a Pitta person, Pitta people should favor cooling things like an assortment of a lot of raw fruits and vegetables. Pitta's hot, strong, sharp fire can easily digest raw food. Okay, but not a Vata's Agni, not a Vata's digestive fire. So Pitta people can eat and get away with raw food. Okay, but in general, Ayurveda does not recommend eating raw food because your digestive fire has to work double the efforts to process the raw food. Okay, the dense, grounding, and nourishing food would be really good for a Pitta person. So grains, milk, root vegetables, seeds, dry and dense food like beans, potatoes, oats, pasta, popcorn, and most of the vegetables do well with a Pitta person. Mild things like apples, cucumber, lime juice, softer cheeses, but not hard cheeses, not extra fermented cheeses like cottage cheese, goat cheese, anything that is softer in nature. Taste, sweet, bitter, and astringent are the tastes to favor for a Pitta person. Now let's look at Kapha. Kapha is heavy, so obviously eat opposite to that, light and airy to digest foods. Abundance of fresh fruits and vegetables, but preferably cooked. Warm cooked foods with honey, warm and hot beverages would be really ideal. Dry things like beans, white potato, dried fruits, rice cake, popcorns, an occasional glass of red wine or white wine, Kapha person can easily take it. Rough things like broccoli, so roughage, broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, dark leafy greens would be so ideal for a Kapha person. The taste that would be good would be pungent, bitter, and astringent. So I've seen so many of my Kapha clients who love buffalo sauce on everything. buffalo or sriracha. They put it on everything and they love it. They love immensely. And Kapha people in general are big foodies. They love food. They love to try out different cuisines. They love to cook. They're very good cooks. And food for them is so soothing. It's a comforting thing for them. Like eating is a very comforting thing for a Kapha person. So these are a few things that, like, very easy tips and tricks that you can use in your daily routine that can keep your health very in balance and can avoid diseases. So prevention is always better than cure, and these are a few things that you can use. But the first thing is to understand what your constitution is and what type of digestive fire do you have, and then pick the right food and the right lifestyle for you. Okay. So that's about it. We did dig a lot deeper into what Ayurveda is today. And let me tell you, this is just the scratch on the surface. So this is nothing. This is just a scratch on the surface. So I'm glad I could present to you, and let's move on to questions.
Thank you so much, Vanashree. That was an amazing presentation. We have a few questions that some participants have put into the chat. I can read them out to you for
Sure.
you to hear.
Okay.
We have one question that says, what does Ayurveda say about fasting?
Right. So again, as I said, Ayurveda is a very individualized system of medicine, right? Nothing is good or bad for everyone. Okay. What is good for you is what you need to understand. Now, if you're a Vata person who has high air and ether element, fasting may not be a right thing for you, because if you leave your stomach empty for longer periods of time, that Vata is going to occupy the emptiness and cause a lot more issues in your system. So understanding what constitution you have and then doing fasting. Now, if you're talking about intermittent fasting, which is very widely used these days, the amount of fasting for every constitution would vary. So if you're a Vata person, I would not recommend fasting more than, say, 12 to 14 hours, because if you fast more than that, there are likely more chances of you developing gas, bloating, constipation, things like that. For a Pitta person, because they have very strong, sharp fire, maybe fasting more than 10 to 12 hours would just drive them nuts. Okay, so maybe not good for a Pitta person. So probably they should not fast more than 10 to 12 hours. Okay, for a Kapha person, though, intermittent fasting can show wonders. Like for a Kapha person can go up to 16 to 18 hours fasting and they would be fine. And actually, it would be very beneficial for them to fast. So if you're a Kapha person with a slow metabolism, fasting will be very, very beneficial. But that does not mean that fasting is bad for other constitution, but just to know the right amount of fasting, how much you need to fast. Okay.
Excellent. Our next question on here is mango lassi an exception to the bad food combination?
A very good question. Well, mango lassi is not Ayurvedic at all. It's Indian. Not all Indian food is Ayurvedic, let me tell you. Indian food, most of the Indian food that you get in the restaurant is not Ayurvedic. It does not follow any rules of Ayurveda. And that's why probably it's really tasty, right? They mix tomatoes in with dairy at like cream, and they make the curries, and that's why it tastes really really, really good. So mango lassi is not an exception. It is a wrong food combination. Okay.
And then our next question is, how does Ayurveda view a vegan diet?
So any diet is not good or not completely bad. What Ayurveda believes in is moderation is the key. Okay, whatever you eat, whether it's good for you, whether it's bad for you, whatever you eat, if you eat it in moderation. And what does moderation mean? Not eating it every day, maybe 2 or 3 times, depending on what you're eating. Like if you're eating a cake every single day, obviously you'll have diabetes later down the line, right? But if you're eating a cake once or twice a month, it's not going to harm you. And it also depends on how much you're eating, right? So a vegan diet, according to Ayurveda, is amazing if it's working for you. A lot of my clients these days are vegan is because the dairy is horrible. I mean, the things that they're putting in dairy, and also the how the cows are treated and the hormones that they're given. So obviously you are going to see a lot of imbalances by drinking dairy. And technically, after 5 years of age, milk is something that you should not probably drink because the lactase in you goes down as you age. So Ayurveda recommends, if you are vegan, like no meat, no dairy, that's absolutely fine. If it's working for you, that's great. Keep doing it. And there is nothing wrong in being or in following a vegan diet.
Those are all, oh, another question just came in. What would you recommend to people so they may come to a more stable state and find out what dosha you are?
So, as I said, the first would be to understand the characteristics, which are what qualities are most predominant in you. Like what do you resonate with more? What qualities of dosha you resonate with more? And not just your constitution, but you should also probably assess your Agni. Is like, what metabolism do you have? Do you feel hungry for breakfast? If not, then probably you have a weaker metabolism. Do you have any digestive symptoms like gas, bloating, constipation? Do you have diarrhea? Do you have alternating episodes of diarrhea and constipation? That means you have Vishama Agni. If you're always hungry, if you're hungry and not satisfied, then probably you have a Tikshna Agni. So understanding those qualities, that might help you come up with a assessment of constitution. But to get a really accurate assessment, I would recommend going to an closest Ayurvedic practitioner that you can find, because they are well trained to assess. It's not easy to assess by yourself because it can get super confusing. And then there are so many quizzes online too, right, to assess your constitution. But I do not recommend the quizzes. The only problem with quizzes is it will take into consideration sometimes your vikriti, that is your current imbalance. So say, for instance, if you move from Texas to Minnesota and you start having dry skin, and then you're taking a quiz and it asks you, what kind of skin do you have? You're going to take dry, right? But that's not always the case. You never had dry skin since your childhood. So that's where the quizzes go wrong. It might take your vata imbalance as your constitution and tell you you're a vata person. Okay, so that's why I do not recommend doing quizzes a whole lot, because it's not an accurate estimation of who you are. But understanding more, reading more, and getting in tune with your system, understanding what makes you feel better when you eat. Does your stomach hurt, or do you just feel groggy by eating a certain type of food, or do you just feel very uplifted and very channelized and activated when you eat a specific kind of food? So being more in tune with your system. I always tell everyone, listen to your intuition. If you're very in tune with your body, your body and your mind, your soul will tell you what is right for you. But there is a fine line between intuition and craving. Okay, so understanding that, is it a craving or is it something that my body is telling me to do? And that could be understood by understanding how you feel after you indulge in that intuition or craving, right? So if you're craving too many sweets and you eat it every single day and you don't feel so good after eating them, then probably it's a craving, it's not an intuition. But if you're craving, if you're a vata or if you're a high kapha person and you're craving pungent food, that means that kapha wants to be balanced in your body, and maybe eating pungent food might make you feel better, and then it's your intuition telling you that this is what your body needs right now. Okay. Sanya is saying, law, most of the dining hall food is directly against most of the doshas. So like the dining food as in the University of Connecticut dining food, is that what she is referring to? Probably. Okay. Oh, Sanya, great. Well, then I would recommend to take care of your Agni. If the dining food is not apt, not necessarily you'll always get the right food for your constitution. So if you keep your Agni strong, it can digest anything that you eat then, right? So drinking warm water with your meals, maybe drinking some CCF tea or fennel tea after your meals might help the food get digested better. Or even, there's a very simple recipe that we tell people, if who live on campus and not necessarily get the ideal food for their constitution or do not have time to cook, right? So what you can do is you can just grate some fresh ginger, squeeze maybe, so about one whole ginger, and then squeeze about a lime, like a small sweet, like not sweet lime, like small lime, a whole lime in there, and maybe half a teaspoon of salt, and then just mix this and keep it in your refrigerator. Okay, you can take about 1 or 2 pinches of this before you go eat, and that will help your digestive fire digest and not produce any digestive toxins in that process. So no matter what you eat, it will always help you digest. So ginger, lime, and salt, it's a very simple, we call it as ginger pickle in Ayurveda, and it really helps, like few pinches of this before you go eat any meal, and that would really help. No worries, Sanya. I'm glad it would. I'm hoping it would help you. I think there is Mary's question. Would you share some advice as to how to find a qualified Ayurvedic practitioner in the US? Very good question. So one thing I would recommend is to look at the degree of that person. The highest educated in Ayurveda in this country would be BAMS, the degree that I have, or BAMS MD is what you would see, like Masters of Ayurveda, but Bachelors of Ayurvedic Medicine and Surgery. BAMS is the highest educated level that you can find in the US. And there are a lot of BMS practicing doctors in the US, so you can definitely search them out. Also, NAMA, National Ayurvedic Medical Association, has a big directory of all the doctors that practice in the United States. So you can definitely go to that resource and check it out. The level below BMS doctors would be Ayurvedic practitioners. Okay, so there are different levels of practice or standards of practice in Ayurveda that are not yet legalized, but this is what we see in our area of work. So Ayurvedic practitioners is a 2-year degree program. It's a certificate degree program that you get through accredited Ayurvedic colleges in United States. And Ayurvedic practitioners go through 2 years of schooling, and they do a lot of clinical work as well. So they're well versed in Ayurveda. I would recommend, please do not go to anyone who just say that they're Ayurvedic practitioners. Always look at their degrees and where they have graduated from. It's very important. Like you can call yourself an Ayurvedic practitioner over a weekend Ayurveda course too, and that is the sad part, that NAMA and a lot of organizations are working on standardizing practices of Ayurveda and having like proper degrees. But yeah, just always look at their degree and ask them if they are from an accredited, they have gone through education from an accredited college of Ayurveda. So like Kripalu is one of the college, the Ayurvedic Institute is one of famous college, California College of Ayurveda, Joyful Belly School of Ayurveda. There are some good accredited colleges in the United States, and you should probably look at their education, where they're educated from. So the Ayurvedic practitioner would be a level below, and then there are Ayurvedic health counselors, which are another level below, which are also educated, but they're educated for 1 year rather than 2 years, and they don't go through a lot of herbal education per se, but they focus more on diet and lifestyle changes and things like that. So these are the 3 main things that you should look for. BAMS, that is an Ayurvedic doctor. Well, we are not allowed to use doctor, but in India we can practice Western medicine, and we learn the entire syllabus of Western medicine. So we are allowed to practice Western medicine as well, and that's why it's actually very beneficial to learn both the sciences, so we know what science is lacking, right? So BAMS doctors or Ayurvedic practitioners or Ayurvedic health counselors. I wouldn't say doctors, but BAMS. So Bachelors of Ayurvedic Medicine and Surgery is what you're looking for. Okay. Sanya saying, does Ayurveda face a lot of stigma in the medical field currently? Not stigma per se, but a lot of people, it's really a difficult science to understand. So a lot of people are opposed to it. Most of the times, like not only Ayurveda, but every complementary medicine faces this. Like every complementary medicine faces this because I think not all Westernly trained doctors are open for integrative practices, but it's changing. It's changing big time now, and I can see a big change happening in the United States of integrating other medicines into Western medicine. But yeah, sometimes, and then yeah, there could be some stigma in the medical field because people think it's not well researched, it's a very ancient science, but we have well documented cases and there's a lot of research done on Ayurveda. So it's not something that is just a quack science out there. We are not witch doctors, I promise you. It really works. It really, really works. It's a very scientific science because it's documented and it has been researched and it has been used for centuries together and it does work. Okay. Brian is saying, how does Ayurveda identify and address emotions such as fear that need to be released from an area in the body that is causing a problem in that area? This is a very good question. So Ayurveda does believe that emotions can physically be stagnated in your body, like, or emotions has affinity to certain organs in your body, like anger, irritation, frustration has affinity towards your liver because they're hot heating emotions. A liver is a heating organ in the body. Whereas like worry, fear, anxiety, sadness, grief are more to your heart, to your lungs, to your kidneys, to your urinary bladder. They have more affinity towards those. Ayurveda has amazing things that you can do, like specific pranayama, specific type of meditations that you can use, specific kind of therapies that we do in Ayurveda called as panchakarma therapies. Those are more detoxifying therapies that we do. It's one of them is Shirodhara, where you just lie down and we pour warm oil over your forehead and it just goes down. If you've never ever done Shirodhara, find a Shirodhara practitioner and do it. I bet you'll never go back to any other therapy. It's like such an amazing, wonderful experience. So those therapies really help. There is another thing called marma. So marma is Ayurvedic acupressure. So I wouldn't say it's any similar to acupressure, but it's activating your subtle energy points. So Ayurveda says there are specific energy points on your body that need to be stimulated. If the energy is blocked in those channels, then you would be having so much emotional stagnation in the body. So activating these subtle energy points, subtle marma points on the body can help releasing the emotions. Okay. Aksir is saying, first documented evidence of massage therapy was found in India 3,000 years ago. Can you explain the therapeutic benefits of massage therapy in Ayurveda? Have these been scientifically proven? What Ayurvedic practices are currently integrated in with biomedicine? So massage therapy first documented, yes, it could be 3,000 years ago, but probably documented 3,000 years ago, but it was used way before that. Massage is extremely beneficial because it also depends on what kind of constitution you are, what kind of oil you're using for massage. When you're doing the massage, you should never do the massage right after eating or right before going to bed. You know, there are so many things that you need to follow when it's considering massage. So massage, if you're talking about Abhyanga is something like a lifestyle thing that we usually recommend to release the stress of the day. So just get any plain oil. The most neutral oil would be sunflower oil, to use the regular cooking sunflower oil, nothing fancy. Just warm that oil up in a warm water bath or hold it in the under a warm running water tap. And then just warm it, take it in your hands, and then just rub it all over your body, more so on the areas where you feel there's stagnation or the areas hurting, or more so where you're dry. And then just let the oil sit on your body. And this should be a very mindful activity to do, like a meditation almost. Think of it as all the stressors of the day are getting stuck to the oil, and then you're taking a shower and washing them off. So it's a very, very mindful activity to do, very meditative process, extremely soothing and extremely balancing. Okay, so for all the constitutions, though kapha people should be a little mindful of doing Abhyanga because it might increase kapha, but for all the other constitutions, it's really beneficial. So just putting oil and then taking a shower. Don't use soap, only in the necessary areas, and then wipe it off with a towel. Do this every single day, and reap the benefits of it. It's just an amazing practice to do. Very easy. It should not take more than 10-15 minutes in a day to do. I would recommend doing Abhyanga at night before bed, because then you're winding down for the bed. And also if you take a warm shower before bed, it helps you sleep better. So that is something that I would recommend. What Ayurvedic practices are currently integrated with biomedicine? I don't think a lot of Ayurvedic practices are integrated yet, because it's not yet in the mainstream as a system of medicine, but we're working on it. But a lot of Westernly trained doctors, or maybe a lot of integrative nurse medicine practitioners, are using a lot of herbs from Ayurveda, like ashwagandha. Ashwagandha is so widely available now, like turmeric, ginger, ashwagandha. All these are very much widely used these days. But I'm pretty sure the picture is gonna change in the few coming years. People are awakening, especially after COVID, you know. People are just like, we need so many different practices to heal the body, because just one, and don't get me wrong, I'm not against Western medicine. I absolutely believe in Western medicine, but I believe that every medicine has its own boundaries, and human body is so complicated. There cannot be just one medicine that can treat human body, right? I truly believe that integrative medicine should be the future of medicine, because you exist as a human being on so many different levels of existence. It's impossible that you can treat the human body with just one medicine. Okay, and every medicine has its own boundaries. So just understanding what would be the right medicine for what issue, like if it's an acute symptom, if it's an excessive, horrible infection in the body, Ayurveda may not be able to treat acutely. But if you take antibiotics for that and that messes up your gut, Ayurveda can certainly heal the gut and not let the infection come back. So it can definitely prevent the recurrence of infection in your body. And Ayurveda is a very slow system of medicine. It's a school, we call it school of slow, because we go to the root cause of the disease and try to treat the disease from the root. We don't chop off the branches, because then they're going to grow again if we just treat the symptoms. So you have to see where the symptom is originating and what is the root cause of the symptom, and go to the root and treat the root so that it doesn't come up again. Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Gracie. Thank you so much. She said, wonderful presentation. Thank you so much for sharing this helpful information. I'm glad I could help you out, and I hope the tips that I shared could be helpful in your daily life. And if a lot of listeners here are students, then I would definitely recommend you to implement some of these things in your daily routine, to like as stress busters, like the massage. If you can find 10 minutes from your day to just like wind down for the day and do massage for yourself, it's so soothing, trust me. Drinking warm water, carrying a thermos with you throughout the day, just drinking warm water can change your level of focus by leaps and bounds. So focus, if you want to focus more, if you want to improve your memory, improve your digestion, just drink warm water. And when I say warm, it should not be hot. It should not be cold either. It should be tepid, equal to your core body temperature. So like 98 degrees, 98.6 or 99 degrees Fahrenheit. This is for Pitta people. Pitta people love accurate information. They want they want temperatures. So this is for the Pitta listeners. But 99 degrees Fahrenheit is what you should probably drink the water at that temperature, not hot, because hot water could be extremely drying for your gut, or too heating for your gut too. So it should be tepid. Okay. Any other questions? I'm glad people liked it. How long does it take an Ayurvedic professional to diagnose an issue? Usually our consults are 2 hour long. At least I don't know, majority of BMS doctors consults are 2 hour long. Like initial consult would take us 2 hours, because we have to assess every system in depth And I am trained in something called as Nadi Pariksha. So Nadi Pariksha means pulse diagnosis. So we check pulse on both the wrists of a person, and there are 7 different pressure levels that tell us, each pressure level tells us something very in depth in your system. So the first pressure level is all about your vikriti. What is your current imbalance? The second is all about your like dhatus. There are so many different, sorry, the fifth is the dhatus. The second is ojas, tejas, prana. So there are various different levels that would tell you what is going on in your body, vary on a subtle level. And the pulse can also tell you what diseases you might be prone to in the future, what organs are weaker in your body, and how you can take care of those. So for me personally, I take at least 2 hours to diagnose. Sometimes it goes over than 2 hours if it's a very complicated case and it's intertwingle, like too many systems are imbalanced at the same time. Then it takes me at least 2 to 2.5 hours to diagnose completely, because sometimes if all the 3 doshas are imbalanced, it's extremely hard to treat, because if we are trying to increase or reduce one dosha, the other goes up, and in that process we have to like balance all the three. So it's kind of challenging if more than 2 doshas are imbalanced. Yeah, but 2 hours is what the initial usually takes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite a long time for a diagnosis. Especially
Yeah.
like if you try to integrate that with like biomedicine, that would
Yeah.
be very hard because like doctors here like cannot spend like that much time with the patient because
No, no.
um so
So that's why you need to send them to us so that we can assess them better, right? So you can, like, whatever Western medicine can treat, Western medicine should do it. And whatever Western medicine lacks, Ayurveda can help there, right? So people definitely can come to us and then we can assess them in depth and see what's going on wrong where. Yeah.
yeah, I found it interesting how you were mentioning like the pulse and how that can like provide like so much information for like an Ayurvedic professional. Like what does a pulse tell you like in Ayurvedic medicine?
So, as I said, the pulse could tell me, first of all, what the constitution of that person is. Second is the vikriti, like what is the current imbalance, what is going on in that person right now. The third is what organs are weaker, and maybe like what is stemming, like what is the root of the symptom, or where is the symptom stemming from, like what organ or what system is it stemming from. The condition of your tissues can be very well understood from the pulse. So all the 7 tissues that I mentioned, the rasaraka, like the lymph, blood, muscles, adipose tissue, all the 7 tissues could be assessed very well from the pulse. The fifth is emotions. Okay, like I have had so many clients come to me, and a major part of my consult is understanding them from an emotional perspective. Sometimes people don't easily feel like sharing their emotions, right? Because it's not something that we are trained in. But when I check their pulse, I tell them, say, for instance, you're holding a lot of pitta emotions in your system, like irritation, frustration, anger, and they look at me like, what? How did you understand that? So pulse can certainly tell an emotional, like it can check your emotional layer of existence, and it can tell you what emotions you might be going through, even like what kind of emotions. Is it fear, anxiety, is it worry, is it depression, is it sadness? As a human being, we go through so many, like an array of emotions, right? To understand that, I usually recommend getting an emoji chart on Google and having that in your emotional journal and then pinpointing exactly what emotion you're going through. You might say, I just feel sad, I don't know why, but what is that sadness exactly? Do you know if it's grief, if it's sadness because of stemming from jealousy, like if someone is doing better and I'm sad because that other person is doing better? So like there are so many different aspects to one emotion, to one human emotion. And emotions are so powerful, and they can literally create a very deeper imbalance in your body. And we take emotions very lightly, we take them for granted, which we should not. And emotional cleansing should be happening every single day, and that's why I recommend writing an emotional journal at night, every night before you go to bed. If you're not a big fan of writing, you can draw your emotions out. I have so many artist clients who draw their emotions out. It's so fascinating. And they then, for follow-ups, they show me their artwork, and it's so much fun to look at all the artwork. You could do voice memos if you're not into actual writing or drawing, but something needs to, or even before you go to bed, just scanning yourself emotionally. How did I do emotionally this day? Was I mad, irritated, angry, frustrated? Was I peaceful for most of the day? Was I sad? Was I stressed out? How was I emotionally? So scanning those emotions is very crucial according to Ayurveda. So you're cleansing that emotional layer every single day. Okay. Um, Mary is saying conventional medicine needs to change the model of lack of time. I mean, I completely believe in that, but I also feel sad for conventional medicine people because first of all, there is a big lack of doctors, like medical doctors. The other is they cannot, if they keep giving 2 hours to every single person, they will not be able to practice. It's just impossible, right? So, I mean, and interestingly enough, Ayurveda in India is practiced similarly as how Western medicine is practiced in America. Like, because it's a system of medicine from India, a person would just come to us in India. I have practiced in India for a few years, and they would just come to us. Okay, you're having headache. Okay, we would just check their pulse. We would go deeper. We wouldn't even necessarily do, because Ayurveda is so ingrained in our culture, and it's so ingrained in it's passed from generations to generations. So we don't need to necessarily tell them you need to use spices in your cooking. Well, they're already doing that, right? So we just give them herbs and then they go home. It's exactly like how Western medicine is practiced here. But here, when we practice Ayurveda, because it's totally an opposite science, we need to invest a lot more time into educating that patient as to why we are telling them to do certain things. And that education part takes a lot of time. And not only that, also assessment of that person from an Ayurvedic way also takes time. So, yeah, I know conventional medicine, it will, and it necessarily doesn't have to change, but then it can integrate things, right? If they integrate, then their load will also be a lot less, is what I feel. Yeah.
Yeah, I just have a question. How would you like study like if you're like trying to test like the therapeutic potential of like Ayurvedic medicine, like how would you test that? Because like a lot of like the medicine is like often like herbal and like often contain like multiple different compounds, and it would be very hard to like do like any scientific study.
You're right. So most of the times Ayurvedic compositions are a combination of a lot of different herbs, and that's why it's first of all really hard to study any Ayurvedic. But you can certainly do studies on single herbs. That's called Ekal Dravya Chikitsa in Ayurveda, and that means you're using a single herb to treat a single symptom. Like say for instance, Western medicine. You're probably, excuse me, doing a research on ibuprofen or Tylenol. You're giving Tylenol for headache. Does it work? Does it not? And Tylenol is just one ingredient, right? Similarly, you can use, I'm giving ashwagandha for headache. Does it work? Does it not? So you could do single herbs, but then it's really hard or complicated when it comes to a combination of different herbs, because most of our formulations are a combination of lot of different herbs. It's because one symptom could originate, or the root of one symptom could be rooted in multiple different systems. So we have to target multiple different symptoms with systems with multiple different herbs, and that's why it gets challenging. So, but you can take one formulation and look at the benefits or the effects of that formulation for a specific symptom. But because Ayurveda is very broad and we have so many different herbs that we treat with, or the other thing is one herb can treat 100 different diseases. That is also a problem when it comes to researching Ayurvedic therapeutic benefits, like herbal benefits. Like if I say holy basil is one of the herbs. Tulsi can treat 100 different disorders. It can treat 50 different fevers. But it depends on what constitution you're giving Tulsi in, with what anupana, that is with what carrier you're giving. So there are so many different aspects that come into picture when we are trying to look at the therapeutic benefits. but it does work. That means it's working. It's just we need to know how it's working, and that how is very hard to understand because it's a very broad science. That's why. But there are a lot of research studies done on therapeutic benefits of a lot of herbs. Any other questions? Okay.
Well, thank you so much. This has been so informative. Thank you so much for your time tonight. I can tell that all of the participants got so much out of it. I did put your website in the chat, so if people are interested in learning more about Ayurveda, I mean,
Perfect.
specifically the work that you're doing, they can check out your website as
Yeah,
well.
another thing that I would recommend is subscribing to my YouTube channel. So if you want to learn more, I have a YouTube channel. It's called Vanashree Ayurveda. Or if you type Vanashree Ayurveda on YouTube, if you can find the link, you can put it in the chat, Sierra. But YouTube, yeah, Vanashree Ayurveda, my YouTube channel has a lot of fun videos. Like they're very short videos, like 5 to 10 minute videos. Also my IGTV, my Instagram page, I do a lot of like weekly things like Ayurvedic tip of the week. Like I give you tips for the week and then you can follow those tips and see how you feel for that week, you know. So there are these fun things that you can look up, and if you want more information, I have a resources page on my website too. So feel free to dig in and explore more, learn about this amazing science and utilize all the um, tips that it needs to give you and utilize all the information that you get. It works. If you use it, it works.
Awesome. I just put your YouTube channel in the chat
Perfect.
for everyone
Perfect.
as well.
Yes, thank you so much, Sierra, for doing that. Thank you so much for searching that. And thank you all for joining and coming here and listening to me talk about my passion. Ayurveda is my one and first true love. My husband is extremely jealous about it, but that's what it is, and that's the truth. I love Ayurveda and I love what I do. It's my passion. So I'm deeply passionate about it. So thank you for joining, and I really appreciate it. Thank you, Sierra, and thank you, Yukon, Health, Body, Mind, Interest Group, for giving me this opportunity and coming, and giving me this platform to talk about my passion. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right, everyone have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thank you.
joining. Have a great night. Good night.